What up, everybody? This is the Dr. Football Ultimate Patriots podcast. Welcome. I am your host, Dr. Dennis T, and I'm recording remote from my real live medical office in Dedham, Massachusetts. My man, Justin Fine, is recording today from the Dominican Republic, where I think the weather is slightly better than it is in New England today. Justin, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
Just a little bit nicer. No, yeah, quarter from, like you said, down in the DR. It's beautiful here. I know I'm not missing much. I've heard it's pretty snowy, pretty cold, pretty crappy where you guys are right now.
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting. So let's get into it. We're going to do, it's our first episode we've recorded since the Super Bowl. We are going to take a deep dive on the game on Sunday. I think there's a lot to get into from a lot of different angles, both the game itself, some of the legacy stuff. I think Sunday's game was earth-shattering for some of that legacy stuff. Yeah. And we're going to get into all of that, Justin. But what I really want to start with is this. It's a little bit of a Patriots slipe angle on the Super Bowl on Sunday. And I think that what happened on Sunday is actually great news for Patriots and Patriots fans. And I'm going to tell you why, because it proves that you don't need to have Michael Jordan, Tom Brady type quarterback, like a generational, once in a legacy, once in a generation type player to still win a Super Bowl. Yeah. That you can get a really good quarterback and build a really good team around them, and you can still ultimately beat Pat Mahomes. You can still win a championship. And I think that that's great news for the Patriots and their fans. The star of the Super Bowl, in my opinion, on the field, obviously, was Jalen Hurts in that defense, but off the field, it was Howie Roseman. And you look at the way that team is built, the lines on both sides of the ball, the way they've drafted, that is a well-built team. It is a defense that is the best defense in the NFL, and it proves the adage defense wins championships is still true. And I think overall, the take-home message is, yes, you can have a very good quarterback and build a good team and still win a championship.
I mean, I look at that Eagles team and I totally agree. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I mean, well, let's start with this. Do you have Jalen Hurts as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL after the Super Bowl?
I think you have to start thinking about that. And I mean, if we're who are we gonna put ahead of him now? I mean, Mahomes, obviously, because of his legacy and what he's done. I mean, Hurts is the only one besides Matt Stafford that has climbed to the top of the mountain. And I don't think anyone would put Matt Stafford in the top 5 right now where he is. So as much as I think Josh Allen is a better player, Lamar Jackson is a better player, Joe Burrow is probably a better player, but I do say the word probably because I have some reservations about that. The bottom line is Hurts has a track record of success and now has won a Super Bowl and has been productive every season he's been out there. And I think we have to realize that maybe we've underrated this guy just a lot.
Yeah, I mean, well, I am growing on Jalen Hurts. I think about guys though like Trent Dilfer that win Super Bowls behind a really, really good defense and some star power, right? So, I mean, I'm still debating, the whole Jalen Hurts argument. I think he's probably hovering right around that 5 spot. But I mean, this Eagles team, you hit on it. So I don't even think people, we talk about them being deep. I don't think people actually realize just how deep they are. Like, they are so 2-3 studs deep in almost every position on that defensive side of the ball. Line is just absolutely a unit. They said it's the biggest, heaviest line I think in NFL history. And then obviously you got Saquon Barkley, you got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Hurts round that all out. You have a really, really good roster. I think I was blinded going into this Super Bowl. I think, and I definitely kind of opened my eyes a little bit, but this Eagles team on paper is all around, I think, one of the best rosters maybe ever assembled from top to bottom.
It's definitely true. And they are really built from the lines out.
Yeah.
And I think that as much as, and they have great skill position players on both sides of the ball. I mean, their secondary is great. They have two stud receivers. Hurts is a good quarterback. They've got arguably the best running back in the game, and Saquon Barkley, who cherry pick plucked off the trash heap this year, which sounds amazing. So they have all that too. But the core of this Philadelphia team is really on the offensive line and the defensive line. And I would go so far as to say, and I'm curious what you think about this, is that watching that Eagles team, the way they're built and the way they won, it does make me reconsider what the right approach is for the Patriots to rebuild. And I just really think it reminds us that at the end of the day, you need defense. Defense still wins championships in the postseason, and you really need an offensive line, because those are the two things that drove the Eagles to this championship.
That's true. And well, look, I mean, what you talked about at the beginning is that the Eagles showed that there still is another formula for it, right? You can obviously, if you have that just overwhelming franchise quarterback, that's in the discussion for being one of the greatest, and you combine that with the right coach and some of the right pieces. I mean, the Patriot method, the Chief method, like that is still tried and true, right? But the Eagles did show that you don't need that approach to necessarily win a Super Bowl, and that's really what they did. Is they came out there and they took, arguably, like you said, one of the best lines on both sides of the ball, one of the best teams on both sides of the ball, and they made a statement. And I think that statement is like, if you're a team like the Patriots, you have to figure out real quick, okay, do we have a generational type quarterback? If not, then you go with the Eagles approach, because that's most teams. Most teams don't have a Mahomes. Most teams don't have a Brady. So you're gonna have to go with that Plan B approach, which is, hey, build the crap out of that team, make sure your lines are good, put the weapons around your quarterback, and you can win with above average quarterback play. It does not have to be all-time great.
I mean, Drake May, I love the guy, and I think he's got a super high upside. But let's face it, is he probably going to be Pat Mahomes or Tom Brady? And the answer is no, he isn't. So, I mean, you're the Patriots. You need to look at that Eagles model for how you build this team. And, when I think of them with that number 4 pick, and I'm going to throw a name out there, and it's kind of a boring pick, and it's not something any of us are going to get excited about, but I'm looking at Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan, who, the way that it looks like this draft is breaking down, Justin, he's probably going to be the best player on the board at 4. The Patriots are switching from a 2-gap to a 3-gap defense. He is someone that plays that technique, and he was an absolute beast in college. So, I hate to say it, but I'm like, for all the times I'm saying, they need to draft the receiver, they need to get skill position talent, they need to, do this, that, Travis Hunter, whatever. The reality is, the Super Bowl tells us the sensible pick is going to be to draft the best lineman, and rebuilding the front 7 for the Pats is key, because as much as we talk about receivers and offensive line, and those are huge problem areas, this front 7 was in shambles last year.
Look, I agree. I think if you ask me, who do I want the Patriots to take, it's probably what we both will agree is not the sexy pick, and that's either a stud offensive lineman or stud defensive lineman. I don't think they should reach. I mean, I love guys like Travis Hunter. If he was available there, and it's obviously tough to pass up on someone like him, but I just think if you're talking about rebuilding the core of this team, you start with the line, and you have to plug away at those holes. I wouldn't care if they went offense or defense. If they draft that kid, what's his name? I mean, the kid from Michigan, there's the kid from Penn State, right? Is it Abdul Carter? Is that
Abdul Carter? But he looks like he's going to be gone. Yeah, Abdul Carter. They're saying. I mean, I doubt he makes it to 4. And Will Campbell from LSU. I like him, but it seems like most experts have him mocked in that 5 to 10, more towards the 6, 7, 8 area. So, I mean, he might be a reach at 4. If you feel like he's a stud, then take him. But they need to rebuild the lines, and that needs to be the focus for the Patriots this offseason. And that's what the Eagles championship, I think, more than anything tells us here in New England.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, that's
Justin. Let's look. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say I agree. I think the approach from this point moving forward needs to be get that line right on both sides of the ball. I mean, you can bring in guys to play receiver, to play running back. I mean, I'm not so worried about the weapons as much as I am about the core of the team.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little. We haven't talked much about the Chiefs yet, Justin. So let's talk a little about them. And I mean, honestly, like the Chiefs had this magic, this energy, this team of destiny thing going on, and they kept winning games that I didn't think that they were going to win. They weren't playing all that well, and quite frankly, I don't think their roster was all that great. But they had the Reid Mahomes kind of vibe that kept winning games. I think on Sunday they looked like a team that was kind of overmatched. I think that's evident clearly. They really look like what we thought they were the whole regular season when we were talking about them all season long. And we're saying, look, they're not that good, but it's Reid Mahomes and they're winning games and they're going to be tough to beat in the postseason. Fine. None of us believed this was a Super Bowl caliber roster or a Super Bowl caliber team from 1 to 53. And let's face it, I think they look like that on Sunday. I think that Chiefs team is far away from another championship. I really do. I think they have gotten I think there are a lot of questions on that team, not the least of which is rebuilding their offensive line, which was a huge problem on Sunday. And also, don't forget, Patrick Mahomes has a $66 million cap number next year. That is not sustainable. So there's got to be something done there. They still lack skill position talent in spite of drafting a ton of players at that position. So I think that Chiefs roster, I mean, I don't think their run is over, but I think they're going to lull for a couple of years here.
I think we could see a very similar thing to what we saw in New England, which is, they go now. Who knows if it'll quite be 10 years that dramatic, but I think we're going to see a couple years where the Chiefs kind of have to enter that rebuild. I mean, Travis Kelce, who knows how much longer he'll be around? He's certainly not the force he used to be. Like you mentioned, that offensive line. They had their issues. Chris Jones is getting older. They got a lot of good young guys on defense that are going to need to get paid. Rookie deals are coming up. So, I mean, like you said, that Mahomes contract really hinders what they're able to do, but they're going to have to figure it out. I mean, as long as they have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they'll be able to win any game, and they'll probably be a staple in the playoffs and whatnot. But, I totally agree. I'd be shocked to kind of not only see them continue with this run of dominance, but I was actually shocked to see that they opened up next year as the betting favorite for the Super Bowl ahead of the Eagles and some of those other teams. So,
I mean, to me, that's fool's gold. I know Mahomes and Reid commands a lot of respect, but I just saw this play out in New England with Belichick and Brady, where they went 10 years without winning a Super Bowl. They would win 10, 11, 12, 13 games every year. Yep. They would win the AFC East every year. They would win a playoff game or two every year, but they weren't quite good enough to get over the hump. That was and that's, I think, where the Chiefs are heading. I agree with you. It's not going to last 10 years, but I also would say that, it's presumptuous to think that they're going to have a second chapter of their dynasty like the Patriots did. What Brady did and the way that Brady aged was so abnormal, and his game, his game was custom built, I think, for a long career. Yeah. And I don't know if I would say that quite about Pat Mahomes' game. In fact, I've been saying all year, and I'm going to reiterate this take. I mean, Mahomes is still probably the best player in the NFL, so I'm not criticizing him when I say this, but I do think he's like 5% less than what he was a few years ago. I think he misses a few more throws than he did then. I think he's a little less mobile than he was then. Brady was able to overcome that physical decline with the intellectual and the mental side of it. I see the physical decline starting to happen a little in Mahomes, and I don't know if if his game is going to age as well as Brady's did.
I mean, I don't think it will. It's a slightly different style. It involves a little bit more physicality, a little bit more athleticism. And like you said, Brady's kind of an anomaly. Maybe Mahomes will age well, but the stuff that he needs to do well to be effective, right? The staples of his game it's different. It's different from than Brady. So, yeah, I think this Chiefs team they're gonna have to take a long hard look in the mirror, and they're gonna have to figure out, okay, how do we enter rebuilding mode, or are there some quick fixes that they can make to keep trying to, sustain that dominance? I don't know, but I think they're a ways away right now. And I think they got on the field with a much, much better roster than the Philadelphia Eagles. And it showed. I mean, they were exposed totally. Mahomes looked like he had no clue what he was doing out there. Everything about the Chiefs just looked slow. The defense looked bad. The offense looked stale. And I think it was really just a product of just going up against a much more talented team that dominated at all phases of the game.
That's exactly what it was. I mean, I do think that, and you might disagree with this, I thought the Chiefs looked a little flat at the start of that game, which is hard to imagine for a Super Bowl, but it just, I didn't see or feel that intensity coming from the Chiefs early on in that game.
I agree. It almost felt to me like the Chiefs were, I don't know, a little deflated. And then, once Philly got that first score on the board, I think from there it was, okay, here we go. And they were kind of, playing from behind the eight ball the entire time, and just got tougher and tougher. I mean, Philly just kept their foot in the gas from the start to the finish, and the Eagles just didn't match it. They didn't match the intensity. They didn't match the production. And I mean, look, I saw someone talking about this earlier. The Eagles looked like they may have figured out the key to this Patrick Mahomes offense and this Chiefs offense, which is getting home with 4. If you can bring pressure with 4 and disrupt Mahomes, that seems to be the key. That's what the Bucs did against them, right? Brady and the Bucs did against them in, I believe it was 2020 or 2021, and that's what the Eagles did to them this past Sunday.
I mean, I wouldn't hold that against Mahomes, though, because you could really say that's the key for every quarterback. I mean, it was really the key for Brady, too. I mean, why were the Giants able to beat Brady in 2 Super Bowls? For the same reason, and why were the Ravens so successful? Why did the Jets have some success against Brady for a little while there? Because they were able to get pressure on him with 4. So it really is the same thing for everyone. But certainly, that was, I think, obviously the key to the actual game on Sunday was the Eagles' ability to just get relentless pressure on Mahomes with absolutely not blitzing anyone. I don't think they blitzed once. I think I heard somewhere.
No blitzes. So I mean, and that says something. To have no blitzes, but I still think they had something like, it was like 18 pressures or something, like it was like 18 pressures, 6 sacks, something crazy like that. So I mean, you're constantly got the quarterback, on his heels, and you're not even blitzing anybody. So that, I mean, yes, it does kind of, I guess, sound a little obvious. Like, well, if you can do that, you're going to be successful. But it really is the key to beating somebody like Patrick Mahomes, because he didn't really have much going on downfield. He couldn't get any momentum going, and the rest of that defense was able to bottle up guys like Kelsey and the rest of his weapons.
Justin, let's talk a little bit about legacy while we're talking about Mahomes. Yeah. And I think that we can temporarily put aside the Mahomes as the GOAT thing. Like, I think that's over now for a really long time. Brady's first 5 Super Bowls, he was 3-2 too. He won 3 and then he lost 2, and that played out over a little more time. But I think, Mahomes has had a terrific run, but he has a really long way to go before we should even think about putting him in the same breath as Tom Brady, who I think Sunday pretty much firmly establishes that Tom Brady is still the unquestioned GOAT and will be for a long time. Like, for Mahomes to crawl back to where we would even seriously consider that conversation again, he really probably needs to win 2 more rings, at least now, in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I know, I agree. I think it's so funny because going into that game, we were all saying that the entire Brady legacy almost hinged on this win or loss, because if he won 4 out of 5 and 3 in a row, then it would have almost, I heard a lot of people say it would be a foregone conclusion that he would be the new GOAT, and he would wind up better than Brady. So it really is funny to see how one game has such a large impact in terms of the legacy and how a player is viewed, right? But I
this
agree.
was an abnormal case. It was abnormal, Justin, because if he had won 4 in 6 years, then that would have been a feather in his cap that Brady had never done before.
Exactly.
I think that if you're, but obviously now that didn't happen, and the reality is, look, if their careers, the start of their careers compare very favorably to one another. Especially when you factor in the eras they played in. But, Mahomes has it's through 7 Super Bowls to 3. So and now you can't say that he's done anything that Brady didn't do.
No, including Brady. Brady never got blown out in the Super Bowl either, right? So, you
put a lot of weight in that?
Never getting blown out? I do, because to me, I was thinking about that game almost like our Falcons game, and I said to myself, we were getting so just absolute crap beat out of us in that Falcons Super Bowl, and that team, that player found a way to come back and not only make it a game but to win the game. I thought it would have been a very defining moment for Brady, for Mahomes' legacy. Even if they didn't win the game, if he was able to turn it on in the second half and make a comeback, make that a competitive game, I thought that would have been good for his legacy. But the fact that he just never figured it out, it got worse almost as the game. I know they put up a couple points at the end, but they got blown up by 3 scores. I look at it and I say, okay, well, I just can't see Brady ever letting that happen in the Super Bowl. And he did it. He was in a very similar position and he didn't let it happen.
Yeah, I think it's a small factor. I don't know. I have a hard time holding it against Mahomes, the fact that he got blown out in the Super Bowl, because I just feel like, as much as I don't think he played a good game, I don't really think that was really his fault. I think it really had just way more to do with just the huge talent disparity. As much as everyone wants to point the finger at him, I don't think he was totally responsible. Now, he didn't play a good game. He played a poor game. In fact, I think you could go so far as to say that pick 6 he threw to Cooper DeJean, that was probably one of the worst passes I've ever seen in a pro game. That was a terrible pass. He's going across his body, throwing across the field, off balance, grossly underthrew the ball. And that was really the critical, I think, turning point in the game, where it was okay, the Chiefs are in trouble here, because I think that put them down 17-0. Right before the half, with 4 or 5 minutes left before the half. So he played a bad game for sure. But I don't think getting blown out was necessarily all his fault.
No, I don't think it was all his fault. And I'm not saying I hold it against him a ton, but I'm just saying that the GOAT would have found a way, I think, to make that close, or closer than it was.
Right. And that's fine. And look, we're sitting there watching the game on Sunday and it's 24-0. And I'm like, hey, don't count Mahomes out of this yet, because I just saw Brady do this. If Mahomes is really on Brady's level, then this game is not over yet. But it was way too little, way too late, a couple garbage touchdowns at the end. And you're right. At the end of the day, Brady did something in that Atlanta game that Pat Mahomes was unable to do in this game. So,
yep, totally.
Long way to go in the legacy. We talked a little bit about this, Justin, but I do want to ask a little bit about Jalen Hurts, who's the MVP. We kind of hit on this earlier, but just going into next year, let's think about, Hurts and Jaden Daniels now in the same division. So watch out, Dallas, watch out, New York, because you're screwed for the next 10 years, right? Because these guys are both good quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts probably is the best quarterback in the NFC going into next year. Do you agree with that? Would you put Daniels ahead of him? I'm trying to think of who I might take, but there's been this sort of vacuum in the NFC of all the really great young quarterbacks seem to have come into the AFC. I think if you're going to include Hurts in that group, then you've got to say he's the best quarterback in the NFC going into next year.
I think it's tough to put anybody else above him. The only other guy in the NFC who's won a Super Bowl is Stafford. As much as I love Stafford, I think at this point in his career, I'd take Hurts over Stafford. And Jaden Daniels, look, he had a really good rookie year, but I've seen a lot of guys come out have good rookie years and maybe take a step back in year 2. I like Jaden Daniels, but I want to pump the brakes on him. I think Jalen Hurts is someone who has arguably gotten better each year. And obviously, he goes out this year, wins the Super Bowl, wins Super Bowl MVP. It's tough to to not say that he's the best quarterback in the NFC heading into 2025.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's kind of weird how it's been like a wide open NFC just in terms of like the lack of franchise quarterbacks. I mean, there was a point earlier in this year where I think I said that Jared Goff was the best quarterback in the NFC because, and you know, it's just been so wide open, and there really is like all the really top franchise guys are in the AFC right now. But like, I think Hurts now with that win on Sunday, he steps up and solidifies that he is truly the top guy. All right, Justin, what about the game? Any thoughts about the game itself? Just like the way things went. Can I tell you what I think the turning point in this game was? And besides the pick six, which was huge, but I think a real turning point in this game was when the Eagles were up 7-0. And they went to kick a 43-yard field goal, and Jake Elliott nailed it, but their center jumped offsides, and they had to redo the kick from 5 yards further away. And how many times do you see a team in that situation? They screw up the second kick, and they miss it. And for all the trouble Jake Elliott had all year long, he nailed that kick and gave the Eagles that 2-score lead. And I just thought that was the Chiefs' last best chance to get back in this game was a missed kick there and a short field. I think this is a totally different game if that happens, right? But he nails that kick, and then on the next series, I think Mahomes throws a pick six, and that was it. It was all over from there.
Yeah, it was a momentum building and saving play, right? Like you think about it, like a lot of big plays happen in that game that one probably doesn't get talked about enough. But yeah, Jake Elliott really struggled down the stretch. I mean, the Eagles obviously chose to stay with him. He fought through it, and he came through with a big kick there. And you're right, like he misses that kick. Eagles take it on a short field, and to get the momentum, that could totally not only change the tide of that game, but the outcome of that game potentially. So yeah, big play, and it's probably one that's not going to get talked about a ton, but in hindsight, very important.
Yeah, I mean, you just see those little swings like that, right? Those short fields on those missed long field goals, I think is one of the most underrated plays in football, just in terms of how much it can swing a game. And like, I look back at that game, I'm like, that was probably the Chiefs' best opportunity to get back in this game. And yeah, the Chiefs were totally overmatched, but hey, football is still a game of the heart, right? And we've seen the worst team in the league go out and beat the best team. I mean, look at the Carolina Panthers played the Chiefs and the Eagles really tough this year. And you know what I mean? So, if you get some momentum there, you get a break, you get a score, it's a totally different game. Let's talk a little bit, Justin, about the halftime show, because we haven't talked about that yet. Did you watch the halftime show?
I did, yeah. I don't know. Here's my thing: is I thought it was cool. Like I thought visually it was very cool. Like it was different, right? It was different than most halftime shows that I remember watching. But I didn't like the song selection. I felt like Kendrick Lamar has a bunch of big songs or well-known songs, and I don't know whether those are all songs from off his new album. I don't know if he was just doing kind of like a deep cuts, like his personal favorites. I don't know what it was, but none of them were the songs that I was expecting him to play. So it was a little interesting, but visually it was a cool performance, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't watch it. I put on the Puppy Bowl, to be honest with you. I went with the Puppy Bowl instead on the animal channel, the dog channel, whatever it is, because like it was just too intense for me, man. It was just, the whole halftime show thing, I think it's getting way overboard. It's just gone way overboard. Usually it sucks. We've run out of, like, I think those kind of big name A-level musical acts. So I think we're kind of now going to niche performers. And I mean, I know Kendrick Lamar is super famous and super relevant, but he's probably not made for my demographic. Like that decision is not made for middle-aged guys. So I personally I just took a pass on the whole thing. I just said, I'm not even going to watch it. And to be honest too, like I didn't think it was that great for kids, the whole thing. So I was like, I got 4 small kids in my house, so I just put on the dogs and let them.
Yeah, man, I've heard a lot of people say similar things, that they were disappointed with it. It wasn't anything I'd write home about. I remember I was watching them every time it changed to a new song. I'm sitting there going, "What song is this?" I thought I knew a lot of his good songs. So yeah, I don't know, man. It was just I think you're right. I think they are, kind of running short of a lot of the good acts, the big A-list acts. And so, you got to, like you said, find people who may be a little bit more controversial, a little bit more niche. But, at the end of the day, I thought, like I said, it looks pretty cool. It was a cool performance, but wasn't anything that I would sit there and say, oh, wow, what an all-time great.
I think it's time for them to try some like outside the box, different things too. Like, how about, this is a crazy idea, how about a comedian or a few comedians next year? Like, wouldn't that be great if you had like, I don't know, like who's a hot comedian right now?
Like a Bill Burr, or like a hot Kevin Hart or something. Just go out there. Yeah.
A Bill Burr. Yeah, or Sebastian Maniscalco.
Yeah.
Just go out there and like sling it for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Like it's time to change it up and think a little bit outside the box. Like, the whole halftime show thing, it really didn't even become a thing until like the early 90s. And I just feel like it's kind of gotten played out. So I wanted to try a comedian next year. That would be my idea.
Well, you know what? That's what they did it perfectly at the Patriots Hall of Fame induction, right, with Tom Brady, where they brought Bill Burr out like sporadically, and he did a couple little sets, and I thought that was a nice little touch. It was a good little break. It was fun. Different. It was lighthearted. Yeah, got the people, on their feet. So yeah, I think you could totally try to experiment with something like that at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it's time for them to look at some different things, even if it's just for a year, just to kind of take a break from the whole music thing and it's just it's like overdone, over extravagant right now. It's just not. I think it's become almost a caricature of itself. So time to look at some new stuff. What did you think about the officiating in the game? Because that first call against the Eagles on the offensive pass interference, I thought was horrible. And I'm like, oh crap, here we go again, right? After all 2 weeks of talking about the refs and how the Chiefs get all the calls. And then right off the bat, they give the Chiefs a huge call, a huge break. That was a terrible call. And everyone's saying the same thing across America. And then like 2 minutes later, they give a horrible call to the Eagles. And you're like, nope, these guys are just incompetent. They just suck.
Yeah.
I was really worried about the officiating in this game. If it was such a blowout, I don't think it mattered. But if this was a close game, I guarantee we would have been talking about a controversial call at some point, because it was just those kind of officials.
Yeah. I mean, this was, there were definitely a couple of calls that I thought were questionable, but I'm kind of like you. I was a little skeptical what the refereeing was going to be like, but it almost to me was like there was so much emphasis that was placed on it by the media, by the fans, by even some of the players heading into the Super Bowl, that I had a hard time believing that they could get away with bias officiating in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like it was almost too much attention spotlighted to it that I just figured it was, whether it was good or bad officiating, it was going to be neutral officiating. And I think it was for the most part. I think it was pretty neutral.
It was neutral, but I thought it was bad officiating. I thought they missed a ton of calls. I thought they called a ton of things that I thought didn't need to be called. There was one play where, in defense of the Chiefs, I think Patrick Mahomes got an illegal hand to the face. He got whacked in the face mask, and they didn't call it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you not, after some of the calls they've made in Mahomes' favor this year, and on the biggest stage, you're going to let that thing go where he just got bear clawed into the jaw? Mm-hmm. I mean, so it was a poorly officiated game. It didn't matter because it was such a blowout. But this could have been ugly if it had been a closer game with the refs.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, if it was a closer game, then I would think you would see a lot more scrutiny placed on the officiating, because I think you could argue that one or two of those calls could have had an impact. Obviously, when it becomes a butt whooping, it's less of an issue as long as it's kind of affecting both sides equally. But yeah, and actually, as I'm sitting here, I just got a notification, not Super Bowl, but football related. Travis Hunter is entering the scouting combine as a cornerback. So that's interesting. Yeah,
it is. It's not surprising. I mean, they say that's how he's going to translate better. I personally, I would stay away from Hunter. I mean, I don't think the Patriots should be in on him. I think he's undersized. I think he'll be a good corner, but maybe not a great one. I think the last thing this team needs is a flex corner. They got so much bigger needs on this roster.
Yeah, agreed. But anyway, no, back to the officiating. I think the officiating was, like you said, it was bad, but it was equally bad for both sides. I don't think it really made a difference in the game one way or another. I think that was still going to be a rout no matter what. But it's at least you can kind of, like, you never want to say that officiating is what cost the team a Super Bowl, right? Like, you can definitely look back at that Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl from 2 years ago, right, and say that, that ticky-tack penalty, pass interference at the end of the game that set the Chiefs up for the field goal, right? That was the difference maker and what was a good game. You hate to see the officiating, deciding the outcome of a big game, especially the Super Bowl. And we didn't have that problem this year, which I think is good for football.
Agreed. This was one-sided enough. It just completely blunted out the bad officiating in the game. All right, so here's the question, and then we're going to move on to a few things around the NFL. Which one of these two teams, Justin, is more likely to win? Who's going to win a Super Bowl first, the Chiefs or the Eagles? I'll tell you my opinion, 100% the Eagles. Well-built team, depth all across the board. All their players are young. Quarterback is I think, a guy that can win, super underrated. I just feel like the Chiefs have way too many holes. They're going to need to answer a lot. I don't see the Chiefs as even being that close, in spite of the Vegas odds. I think the Eagles have a great chance to be back again next year in a wide open NFC. The Chiefs have to get through the AFC. One of these years, the Bills or the Ravens is going to win one of these playoff games. They have a much tougher path. So I think the Eagles are actually much more likely to win another Super Bowl before the Chiefs do.
Oh, I do too. I think they're set up better. They have a better team. And if anything, I think it's going to be a lot easier to come out of the NFC than the AFC over the next 5 years. Unless the landscape of the NFC drastically changes. I mean, you look at in that AFC landscape, I mean, even with guys like Lamar and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, and you just got new guys like Bo Nix, who I think are going to compete and be good, and I think Drake May is going to compete and be good. And you still got guys like Justin Herbert, who I think is a bum, but he's got the chance to compete and be good. Like, the AFC is just so crowded with talent that I think it's going to be very difficult for the Chiefs to make it back out of there unless they, really, really rebuild themselves and do it quickly. And I think the Eagles are just going to have an opportunity to run this thing back for the next couple of years. I mean, I still really like the Lions. I wouldn't be shocked if we see the Lions win a Super Bowl in the future. But can you pick a team in the NFC right now that should be able to compete with this Eagles team moving forward? I mean, they are stacked. They are stacked.
I mean, I think the team best position to compete with them is the Lions.
Right.
But I mean, look, as much as I like and respect Jared Goff, and I think he's super underrated, he's certainly not a top 5 quarterback. He's a 6 to 10 kind of guy. So I feel like, I mean, there's no powerhouse. You look at the AFC, and I'm sorry, as long as you have Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow in that conference, it's going to be a tough path for anyone to get out of that conference, including those teams and quarterbacks I just mentioned, because they're beating up on each other in the postseason. And of course, Mahomes. The NFC just feels so much more wide open right now. I think the Lions are the best bet. I think the Vikings, I like that team. I just can't believe Sam Darnold is going to win in the postseason after what we saw this year. Look, Jaden Daniels is great, but we got to see him do it more than one season. And I don't know if the Redskins quite have that kind of roster. There's really no one in the West that I think or the South that's even in the conversation, unless I'm missing someone off the top of my head. The Rams are, I think, on the decline. The 49ers, I wouldn't count them out next year, but I think that they're coming off a bad year. I'm not going to put them in that category. And that's really it. Seattle, Arizona are building. So you're right. I mean, the Eagles are the hierarchy of the NFC right now.
Yeah. Yeah. They're going to have a little bit of a run that they can go on. I mean, like I said, I just don't, you obviously got some good teams. The Lions are a good team, but look, even the Lions, we just said Jared Goff's not a top 5 quarterback. So, for them to win a Super Bowl, it would clearly have to be the same formula that the Eagles are currently using, right? And if they're taking the same approach, well, I like the Lions, but this Eagles team is a better roster, top to bottom. So,
It is. In that defense, and the Lions, the Eagles are going to have a new offensive coordinator too. So to be fair, but the Lions are going into next year with 2 new coordinators and a defense that proved to be a liability in the postseason. Now that was without Aiden Hutchinson, but I still think that it's a big difference between what the Lions have on defense and what the Eagles have on defense. And we know how important that is in the postseason. So, I think they're the clear favorite going into next year. No, on the NFC, no doubt about it. And it's funny because it made me think a little when the Patriots played the Rams in that first Super Bowl in 2001. There's that famous sign of the Rams fan holding the sign in the audience at the Superdome, and it says "A dynasty is born tonight," because everyone thought the Rams were going to win their second in 3 years and start the dynasty. Yeah. And I just think it's a little ironic. It reminds me of this, where like everyone thought the Chiefs were going to cement that dynasty last Sunday, and it really might have been the start of a second dynasty being born, an Eagles dynasty. If they can win another ring, then they're going to have their own little run.
Totally. And we talked a lot about Jalen Hurts and this Eagles team, but like, how vindicated does Nick Sirianni feel right now?
Oh yeah.
His
name yet.
The guy he had taken so much crap from a lot of people, the fans, the commentators. Everybody. there was rumors coming into this year that him and Jalen Hurts didn't get along. Jalen Hurts didn't like him, and then there was issues that you got guys reading books and guys freaking out, and him fighting with fans after a loss in like week 4 or 5, whatever that was. Yep. It literally looked like that team was going downhill fast. Not to mention the way things fizzled out last year for them, the way they ended the year. So like we had said many times, he was in the hot seat. He could have been one of the first coaches to get fired this year.
Justin, he went into this season and we all thought Bill Belichick was going to be the coach there at some point, either this year or next.
Literally.
We said that was the place that was the best fit, or you said, and a lot of people agreed with you, that was the best place, that was the best fit for Belichick. So this guy came into the year on thin ice, and then a 2-2 start he really recovered, right? He climbed the mountain.
He did. He totally did. So yeah, he's got to feel good. And again, that you talk about who's more likely to go on a run right now, and continue a dynasty to potentially threaten the Patriots. It's like, I know it's only one for the Eagles, but their head coach young, their quarterback young, right? Their entire roster young. It's like they kind of have everything that you need to have a chance to hit the Patriots' legacy. Obviously, long way to go.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's obviously a long way to go, and they only got one, but they have all the pieces to potentially make a run at it when you look at the age and the depth of everybody.
Agreed. And I think Sirianni proved that he is one of the best coaches in the NFL, as much as people doubted him and things fell apart for him last year. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens moving forward. But right now, you'd have to consider Nick Sirianni a top coach in this league based on what he's done in his career so far, where he's only been a coach for a couple of years, and guy's had a lot of success in 3 or 4 years as a head coach. Made 2 Super Bowls, won 1. His record is amazing. Look, give the guy some credit. Let's see what happens. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia in 2018, and he was like fired 2 years later. So it can go south pretty quickly in this league. But I think Sirianni right now goes into this year, and you have to give him some respect as being one of the best coaches in the NFL.
He does, but he gets his respect, but he also, I think, now has an added layer of pressure, right? Because he's proven that this team is capable of winning a Super Bowl, right? They have the right quarterback, they have the right pieces in place, they have the talent. He basically has the keys to the Ferrari now, and his job is to not crash it. Right. So it now that the Eagles know that they are capable of this, this is the expectation. Super Bowls are going to be the expectation in Philadelphia now. So it's a double-edged sword. He gets his respect, but his expectations are heightened as well, I think.
I would go so far as to say that that Eagles team really should win another Super Bowl at some point in the next 2 or 3 years. It would be, if you look at where that roster is and how wide open the NFC is, it would be a big disappointment if they don't win at least one more Lombardi Trophy. They have an opportunity there. Totally. All right, let's talk about a few things, Justin, around the league. Unless you have any more thoughts on the Super Bowl.
No, let's do it.
I think the big news and the big story that, I don't know if you just got the alert on your phone, but I think this was sort of a fate accompli, but now it's official that the New York Jets are going to move on from Aaron Rodgers this year. He will be a June 1st cut. Yeah. So he will be a free agent. And what my take on this is, you know, I was watching SportsCenter or Get Up this morning, and people are saying, where's the best fit for Aaron Rodgers? Where's the best fit for Aaron Rodgers? And I'm hearing Pittsburgh. I'm hearing, some other teams, throughout that might be borderline playoff type teams. Aaron Rodgers' best fit is nowhere. Aaron Rodgers' best fit is retirement. This guy does not have it anymore. He will show you flashes of good play here and there. We saw that this year. He's super inconsistent. He does not have his skill set diminish fast. He is not a hard worker. So physically, he is not in the kind of shape you need to be a 41-year-old quarterback that's going to make it work. Mentally and emotionally, he is completely checked out. I would find no team should take a chance on this guy as a starting quarterback. I don't think he is a worthwhile backup quarterback because of his personality. The best place for Aaron Rodgers is to retire and bow out gracefully from the NFL. I
agree totally. I think the guy definitely should hang it up at this point. But I guess to just humor the conversation, if he did go to play somewhere, where do you think that should be? Like, what's his best choice? And do you think he's open at this point in his career to being a backup quarterback? Or do you think he still is looking to go somewhere and be a starter?
From what I saw from him this year, the only thing that I could see him doing next year is being a backup. I just can't say that he's one of the 32 best quarterbacks. And, well, let me take that back. He might be in that 20 to 30 range, actually, in terms of what he can do on the field. But when you weigh in all the baggage and the extras and the fact that he's 41 years old, there is no way that he is one of the 32 best options for one of these NFL franchises at this point. You're better off going with a young guy with higher upside and less baggage and taking a chance on him than investing in Aaron Rodgers, who will take you absolutely nowhere and will be just simply a placeholder. If a team's looking for a placeholder, if a team is playing for the 2026 draft, then by all means take a shot on Rodgers if that's what you're thinking. Giants or something like that. I don't know, but I just don't see him as being a starter anywhere right now.
Yeah, there really isn't a good fit for him because it's almost like whoever brings him in is accepting that they're going to be going backwards for a year or two, right?
That's right.
You're not really getting much out of him at this point. There's really no value. So, I do think if he was open to being a backup quarterback, that there are a couple teams that I could see being good spots for him. You look at that Miami team with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and a quarterback who has trouble staying on the field, right? If he was willing to accept a backup role, hell, I'd bring him into Miami. Or, I'm sure there's a couple other teams out there that are in a very similar position. What about a go play backup for Jared Goff in Detroit, right? That could be a cool little fit for you out there. So, there's a couple spots where I think he could land if he was willing to accept the right role for himself. But if Aaron Rodgers is trying to be a starting quarterback next year, I think it goes nowhere but downhill, and it goes downhill fast.
I can't even understand why he would want to play again at this point. He's going to be 41 years old next year. Yeah. He did win a ring. He's had a really good career. I don't think he's going to win a Super Bowl again. I don't think he's that kind of player anymore. So what are you doing? You going out and just riding out the string and being like the backup for Arizona or starting for the Giants? Really, what's the point? I don't think there is any point for him. So I would find it hard to believe, especially like looking how he has had one foot out the door for the last couple of years. He's on the Pat McAfee show every day. He's not totally focused on the game anymore like he used to be either. So why would he even want to come back? I don't think he will.
No, I don't. I don't think he will, but You never know. I mean, the guy, he surprised us a couple times. I feel like, can really tell what he's thinking. Who knows? He's going to disappear to some dark shit in the woods for a couple days, and who knows what he'll come out thinking, right? So, we'll see what happens. But at this point, I at least like the fact that the Jets had the wherewithal to say, hey, we're not playing this game any longer. We're not extending our trip with Aaron Rodgers. He's out of here. They need a fresh start.
Totally. I mean, good for Aaron Glenn, right? Yeah. Good for Aaron Glenn for the way he's handled this situation and the way he presented to the media right at the beginning as being the voice and the person in control, and then coming right in and saying, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work for us anymore, Aaron, in getting rid of Rodgers. Now, who the heck is going to play quarterback for them? That's another matter altogether. I mean, it's not a great year to be drafting a quarterback. The Jets are at 7, which is a little low to get one of the top 2 guys. So I don't know what their plan is, but you know what? Aaron Rodgers would have just been another placeholder year for him, would have been another waste of a year for the Jets. So good for Aaron Glenn for cutting the cord.
Yeah, totally agree. Smart move.
Let me throw out a couple other quick names, Justin, before we wrap this up. And I just want to see a couple guys that have kind of look like they're going to shake free this year. And I want to see where you think these guys are going to end up. Let's start with Myles Garrett. He's the biggest name, defensive NFL MVP last year, is demanding a trade from the Cleveland Browns. Let me just say, I would love to see him in Detroit. We talk about what could rebuild that Detroit defense and put them on a level with the Eagles and put them into Super Bowl contention. A Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson defensive line would be absolutely dominant.
Yeah, totally agree. I think that would be a phenomenal choice for him. I've seen him linked to the Eagles. I honestly don't like that move. I don't think the Eagles need it. I think the Eagles don't need his cap hit. They have a bunch of young talent that they should keep developing and growing into their role. I think the perfect spot for Myles Garrett is in Detroit. Having him alongside of Aiden Hutchinson would be fantastic for that team. And you're going to need him. You're going to need 2 guys like that to get pressure on guys like Jalen Hurts to win those big games. And I think Myles Garrett is still probably one of the best, if not the best, defensive player in the NFL. And that's what Detroit needs. Detroit needs to beef up that defense.
How about Matt Stafford? There's rumors that he might shake free. I think I think he would be a good fit with the New York Giants. I'm gonna throw that one out there as a bridge quarterback while they kind of figure out their long-term plan. I would be surprised if the Rams actually move on from him though, because I think that Rams team still could be good next year.
Yeah, I would too. I think it's interesting that they're moving on from Cooper Kupp. I think that to me is what maybe gives some potential to Stafford moving on, but I found it tough to believe that Stafford would want to go rebuild a new career, a new life somewhere else. I mean, he's in the later edge of his career. He's got a good relationship with McVay and a good thing with the Rams. Just won a Super Bowl there. He's got 3 kids. Does he really want to be packing up and starting a new life just to go play for another year or 2 in some new city?
Yeah, I agreed. And, he don't forget, I think he was drafted in 2009. So he's 15 years in. So he's fair game to retire, totally. Too.
Exactly.
And you have to wonder if that's the move for him. And he's won a Super Bowl. I think I don't think anything's going to change for the trajectory of his career at this point. Where do you think Cooper Kupp ends up, Justin?
Hopefully a Patriot. I think that'd be great. I've had a lot of people talk about that. I think that'd be a great fit. Super smart. I mean, they say he's having a coach in the field. He'd be great for Drake May's development. Be a great weapon, great veteran. So yeah, I would love to see him in a Patriots uniform.
Awesome. And then I agree with that 100%. I think he's a perfect fit. You can get him for a mid-round pick. He'll fit great with the Josh McDaniels offense. And then last, Deebo Samuel, shaken free supposedly this year. I'd love to see him with the Commanders in Washington. They got a ton of cap room. They got Daniels on the rookie contract. I think he'd be a great fit.
Yeah, I was going to say, now that's a guy that I don't want in New England. I have my reservations about him and his health and all that stuff. But when he is healthy, he's a super productive player. I think he would be a great complement over with Terry McLaurin and Washington. It's crazy to see the production that Jaden Daniels had without really a ton. You look at most top-end quarterbacks in the league, they have a nice 1-2 punch at that receiver spot.
Yep. He
was missing that 2 spot. So if you could bring Deebo Samuel in, that'd be a great fit for him.
Yeah, I just think you look at Jaden Daniels' game and his ability to get the ball in the hands of his playmakers accurately. Like that could be a deadly combination.
Yes, totally.
All right, man. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up for the week?
No, man, it's just another good season. Flies by as always. But I think there was some really cool things this year that are going to set the table for an interesting 2025. Like we said, like what happens to the Chiefs? Can the Eagles repeat? Right? What's in the horizon for the Patriots? You got a lot of things shaking up around the league, right? Quarterbacks like Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels. Are they going to take their year 2 leap? Or are they going to regress? Like, what do some of these teams do in the draft? Like, there's a lot of, I think, interesting storylines that are reviving themselves in the NFL right now. It's going to make it an interesting offseason.
It was a great year. It really was. And I think this year was reassuring for me as a Patriots fan because I'm like, okay, it's possible for the Patriots to absolutely suck and for me to still really enjoy the season. Because when we had the Brady thing going on and you're looking for, this is going to end. And you're like, what's it going to be like when the Patriots are having a downtime? Am I going to still enjoy it? And the answer was, for me, this year was yes, and last year too. I mean, the Patriots had a terrible year, but this was a great season just from a fan perspective. So it will be a terrific offseason, no doubt about it. There's going to be a ton of movement and just like a ton going on. I agree with that. What's on the docket for the Dominican today, Justin?
We are about to head out to the beach, meet up with some coworkers, and we are here until Saturday. So just enjoying the last couple of days, relaxing, getting that sun. And I don't know if you can tell, been in the sun a little bit. So, just going to relax.
You know what, Justin? I'll tell you what. You're coming home Saturday night, and we're supposed to be getting a storm Saturday night. So please do yourself a favor. If they tell you the flight is delayed, don't shed a tear. Get the hotel room for another night and stay for another day or two.
You're not going to have to twist my arm. Trust me. I'm already great. Yeah, I'm already in that boat. So
take the day, that extra day, and enjoy it because it is nasty up here.
For sure.
All right, well, that's all the time we have. We're going to wrap it up. I want to thank everyone that listened to this episode of the Dr. Football Ultimate Patriots podcast. We're going to take a little hiatus here with the off season from recording. We're definitely going to we're going to look towards sometime around probably before free agency and that first days of free agency to when we're going to record our next episode, which is what we did last year. If there's big news, of course, we might pop up and do another episode and follow it. But this is pretty much the downtime in the NFL calendar. So there is nothing on sports, by the way. Nothing on sports this week. The NHL is on the tournament. The NBA is on their All-Star break, and football's over. Yeah. So, I mean, good luck watching paint dry this weekend, everyone. That's all I can say.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm almost welcoming snow because at least I can go out and shovel it. Like, it will give me something to do. Like, it's literally nothing to watch. I got to get into show or something, man, because it's just that time.
I was just going to say, now's the time to start a show, for sure.
I've been watching, I watch movies, some classic movies that I never actually saw before. So I watched The Untouchables for the first time, which is a great one. And I watched Gladiator, which I actually embarrassingly had never seen from beginning to end. So I think that's what I'm going to do the next few weeks. Is just kind of some of these movies that are famous and popular that I never actually watched before. Yeah. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's the perfect time for it.
All right. Thanks to everyone that listened. We'll catch you in a few weeks with another episode and have a great time in the Dominican, Justin. The rest of you enjoy shoveling out and try not to slip and fall.
Thank you for listening this week. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash that like button for us. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at EMD Baseball. If you want to find out what me and Keith do to help families and players navigate the recruiting process, go ahead and check us out on emdbaseball.com. Take a few minutes to check out our new online academy. I promise you'll get some good information out of that. Thanks again for listening. Check in with you next week.